everybody. Welcome back once again to the Overwater interview series. Today's episode is with the founder of Bass Upfront, Mr. David Sutkin. David is going to be talking about why he chose to set up the community in the first place and his plans for it going forward. We're also getting into how David's work in corporate America has influenced Bass Upfront and his bass playing career. And of course, we're going to be getting into his incredible collection of instruments, including his 3 Overwater bass guitars. This is a really interesting chat. David has a very unique perspective on the world of bass, having worked in corporate America for so long. I think a lot of you are going to get an awful lot out of this, so stay tuned right to the end and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you next time. Enjoy. Right, so first of all, thanks for coming on.
Sure.
I want to know what made you start Bass Upfront. I'm sure a lot of the people listening will already be familiar with it. It's been phenomenally successful in a relatively short time. But why did you want to start that? What are your goals going forward?
That's a great question. First of all, thank you very much for having me on. I'm really honored to not only be on this podcast, which I've watched many times before with other great bass players, but to be associated with Overwater, such a great company. From everyone I've met so far, the people are really, really nice and down to earth and just great people to be associated with. So I wanted to say thank you for having me on your podcast. So the origins of Bass Upfront, just about 2 years old now. Growing up as a bass player, I started playing bass when I was 12, and I was always attracted to the cats who made the bass sing. I mean, I dug the Pocket, I dug the James Jamerson cats, and I dug a lot of the cats who sat back with the drummer. But what really attracted me were the mainstays. So for instance, I have an older brother and an older sister. So it's right out of that movie. What was that movie? Almost Famous, where the kid, who turns out to be the Rolling Stone writer, comes across his sister's record collection when she leaves. So I had an older brother, 5 years older, and an 8-year-older sister. So I was the baby. So they were off of college, and there were hundreds of albums that they left. They didn't take their album collection to college. As a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old who just started playing bass at like 12 or 13, to have all this at my fingertips, to have Born to Run, to have Wish You Were Here, to have Dark Side, to have the White Album, to have The Last Wall. It really attracted me to the bass players who stood up front. And so I spend a lot of time on YouTube, like a lot of other musicians, on YouTube and on Facebook. And I found, not to cast any dispersions on any other group, because there's a lot of great groups on Facebook, bass groups. But I had a tough time finding a group that I felt comfortable in. There's talk bass, but it's not as immediate, the interactions between people, as I find on Facebook. And so I said, let me try an experiment. Let me try to put a group together of bass players who really love the bass. Whether you just picked up your first Glary or Harley Benton and played your first note today, welcome, you're a bass player. Or whether you just came off your 10th world tour and you have a wall of Ritters or Overwaters or Stratis, welcome, you're bass players. So it was a social experiment with bass as the mainstay. Could I bring together a community of no spam, no bullshit, no drama, no judging, fingers, pick, thumb? I mean, shit, Bobby Vega is one of my favorite bass players in the whole world. And how can you say that pick is better than fingers than thumb? So all of a sudden it started building up. There was 1,000 members, and then 3,000 members. And then we started having raffles with giveaways to charity, to musiccares.org. And I would grab a bass, and I would $10 donation for a ticket for like a Geddy Lee jazz bass. and we got more and more people interested. But because every post has to be approved before it goes up, and we have 8 moderators, 8 admins, and all day long around the clock, because we're around the world where the moderators are, every post has to, not everyone. I mean, if Martin wants to put up a post, he's pre-approved. He's pre-approved. So there's a bunch of guys. If Phil Mann wants to put up a post, he's pre-approved.
Martin will be chuffed. He'll send a picture of his dog.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't send a picture of his dogs, then we're okay. Then we'll have to take away his pre-approval. So it was a place that people could come to and ask a question and not get a stupid answer, or not get teased for the question that they asked. Like, how do you not know this? Don't you listen to this? Oh, you play with a pick. You're not a real bass player, and there's none of that on Bass Upfront. It's truly, somebody wrote today, it's not just a page or a group, it's a community. And we just celebrated just 21,000 active members. And while that's not 200,000, it does feel like a family. It does feel like a community. What we enjoy doing is exposing luthiers who are not that well known, and letting other bass players see them. It's going out and visiting killer players who people might not know and giving them, it's all about giving the exposure. It's giving back. I mean, even the Bass Upfront shirts that we sell, it all goes to charity. I mean, we make no money. We don't monetize the site. We do charity giveaways. We've made so many friends on the inside. When we go to the Mannheim show in Germany, the Mannheim Guitar Summit, there's this Saturday night Bass Upfront sponsored dinner where we take about 30 luthiers and players out to dinner. NAMM, we do the same thing. Bass Upfront has decided. And I guess people just want to be like attracts like, right? It's cosmic law. So if you want to be in an environment with people who are like-minded and don't want the shit talk and don't want to be trashed and want to ask a simple question like, should I use nylon round wounds or steel string round wounds? And then get from the most basic answer to a super technical answer. You'll get all that. And you'll get all that with respect. And so it's just something that's organically blossoming. And it's really been a great ride. The aspirations right now, we're working on a YouTube channel, redoing our Instagram. I have some personal other plans to take music out to the world. I'm talking like maybe a Netflix show, a Hulu. They're all dying for content. Think about what Anthony Bourdain did with food and travel and culture. Well, the two things that everybody loves is music and food. So I have plans in the works to maybe go to Reykjavik and see what it's like to go bass shopping, go to Hong Kong and see what it's like to be a band trying to play gigs in Hong Kong, to go to Switzerland and meet up with doctors who are doing experiments on Alzheimer's and music. Bass Upfront, to answer your question, sorry to be so long-winded, it was an experiment as to whether I could put the group together. Are there enough people who'll come together who are like-minded and respectful and just want to live and drink and think bass? And that's where it comes from.
I love it, man.
Yeah, man.
Brilliant. I think I became aware of you guys certainly within the last 12 months. And I think you were on 16, 17,000 members on Facebook then. So like the fact you're already over 20 it's really exploding, isn't it? It's been phenomenally successful in a very short time. And I also happen to be a massive Anthony Bourdain fan. So yeah, I would
great,
definitely.
great.
Man, if you need a runner on that show, I'm there.
I was hoping I wasn't going to get the look like, nah, I'm really not that sure. But if you think about what he did, just landed somewhere and met up with a host or didn't, and threw bass up front, I could type up anybody in Glasgow want to show me around. Bass is a little niche, so it'll have to be music. I don't know how many people would tune in for just bass, even though Getty's currently doing it. Right, our bass player. But these are the plans. And so it started with, but bass up front will continue to grow. And then I met the Overwater guys because I became friendly with Phil Mann, and he sings the praises of Overwater like no one else. I picked up a Scott Devine signature. From watching Scott, there were two things that I always wanted. And I'm a collector, obviously. So I wanted a Vanderklay amp, and I wanted a Scott Devine Overwater. So the first one, and it killed me, man. Yeah. It killed me, and everyone's like, well, you know what? They make higher quality models, more advanced features. But look how gorgeous this is, man!
Yeah, those are cool. It's like a real race car, isn't it? As well, because it's kind of the short scale, and I love the pickups close together like that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I love the pickups close together, and that was the first one. And I love the new trick locking. Right, it's such a nice touch to not have to worry about that, pulling out or looping the cable behind. And then
100%. Yeah.
After that, then I decided, okay, custom build. And so look at that Spanish olive, right? Just and the wooden knobs, and tonally they're just fantastic because can go straight into the board. And the inlays are also Spanish olive, and the headstock. So it is really just a killing machine. I mean, I love Spanish. I love olive wood, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's stunning.
And then that led to, hey, we got one more bass. We got a bass here that you might be interested in. and all I had to say was Zeracoat. And
yeah, it's pretty special, isn't it? Yeah. Wow.
The one that's plugged in, right? That I've been playing.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite. Look at that top wood. Really, just
I remember this one. It's a wild bass. It's cool, man.
Yeah, fantastic, and I'm sure there'll be more.
Yeah, there's some really exciting ones coming through. Actually, one I think it went out to the customer today or yesterday, which has an incredible kind of blue sparkle finish on it and matching inlays, a bit like the same inlays as mine actually. So it has these kind of inlays.
Gorgeous. What is that?
I have my main. This is a J series, which I've had this a long time, but this has been my go-to bass for getting on for 20 years now. And
the inlays are gorgeous.
It's stunning, isn't it? They're power shells. I don't think they call them abalone as well now. Yeah. But yeah, they are stunning. This is the same as Phil has on his signature bass.
What is that? Maple. What kind of maple is the fingerboard?
If I get this wrong, I'll get a load of backlash from Chris and I'm pretty confident it's bird's eye maple, and you can actually, I don't know if it'll come across on the camera, but you can really see it's actually it's got some really lovely details.
Fingerboard.
Yeah. There we go.
Stunning.
Look at that.
Just
man.
Breathtaking. I could see why that's your go-to.
And it's killer, and I still get so many compliments from front of house guys, musical directors, all the people that I work with. I've never heard anybody that didn't love that bass.
You play live? Do you go direct? Do you go to?
We do now. My signal chain is basically that into a Noble,
Yeah.
and we do everything for my main all the big shows I do. We don't tend to use amps anymore too much. Everything's on in ears, so that just goes via the Noble straight to the front house guys, and it sounds killer.
How do you feel about that?
There's
How do you
not having
feel?
amps on stage.
Yeah.
Initially, I thought I would miss it. I did a tour 4 or 5 years ago, and I did the full. Aguilar sent me like an extra cab, so I had the kind of 4x10 115, and the big stack. I always wanted to tour with like a real kind of old school big stack thing, and I did love it. But we moved on to wirelesses on my main gig a couple of years ago. Because they kind of want us to be much more interactive with the artist. And to be honest, we're playing such big stages a lot of the time that there's so much sub. Like the speakers you're actually going through are so much bigger, so much more powerful that every now and then I'd love to just stand in that place in front of my amp and just be able to just kind of lay back there. But if I want to do that now, I go and stand on the drum riser, because he's got a butt kicker, and then you can feel the drums through the riser anyway. So if you ever see me on stage and I'm stood right behind the drummer on his riser, it's kind of that's my new equivalent of standing in front of my bass amp, because you feel it all through your feet then.
I have the Ike, the drum throne.
Oh yeah,
I have it right over there. I'm talking, and man, that thing goes. Oh, that'll clean your bowels out, man. With a low B, easily. I can remember last year I saw King Crimson's last show in New York City at Radio City Music Hall, and I got lucky enough to get really good seats, maybe second row in front of Tony Levin. But the problem was, second row sounds great, but the mains start around the fourth row, and they had no backline. That was the first time I saw no backline. So
that's not good.
You kind of lose what the mains are putting out. But to be 15 feet from Tony Levin, watching him play, Starless and Bible Black, what is enough. I mean, I try to do a lot of shows here in New York City, and you see less and less backlines. But because I play locally in small clubs in the New York tri-state area, I bring a backline, and I do like to feel my pants flapping. I'll bring like a Schroeder 412 and like a Mesa Subway D800, and we're a three-piece instrumental trio. So a guitar player is playing out of 2 Roland JC 120s and for stereo effect, and then you have in our studio across the street, I have 2 612s with 2 2500 watt Monique power amps, and it's all for the headroom. But
nice.
Well, remember growing up playing out of 40 little 150 watt amps, when that's all we could afford.
I still love using amps, but it's a really difficult time for amplifier companies. I don't know if maybe that's a conversation that is being had on in your community there on Bass Upfront. But more and more my colleagues the guys doing the kind of higher end of stuff here in the UK, you don't see many amps on stage anymore because they want a clean look. It's much easier for front of house to mix. The artist gets less, there's less, they can have a much more isolated sound through their microphones because we don't have guitar amps, bass amps and everything. Even like the drummers are in, the Perspex cages a lot of the time now to try and keep everything as clean as possible.
DI. Even every pedal that comes out, and DI. I guess I'm I'm 56. I'm old school. I still don't mind loading up the truck, loading up the car, and carrying
Yeah.
a 612 in or a 412 in. I guess I come from that school. It's a decent size stage to small stages, but just I just feel I've never used a set of inner ears. I mean, I've recorded in studios multiple albums, which is the
Yeah.
closest I get to inner ears, but I've never played live with inner ears. I guess the quality is good enough. You play with a backbeat also?
No, I don't. I've thought about it. That was going to be one of my kind of solutions once they put me on a wireless. But to be fair, I haven't missed it. These are JH Audio, which are my main IEMs that I use. I've got some other sort of backup sets. Oh man, the low end is phenomenal. Yeah, it's incredible. Like it's not been an issue. If you've got, if I'm doing like a function and they're really like not driving the front of house at all, they're not really using any subs or something like that. That's the only time I'm like, oh, it kind of sucks. But
Yeah.
if I'm doing, but I might bring an amp for that anyway, or I'm not that bothered. But yeah, if I'm doing a big show, then I've never actually missed it because there's so much sub on the stages anyway that
Yeah.
you've got plenty in here. But these
I'll
are like, I
ask
don't
you
know
to
what they
send
are.
me the
Like
link.
they're like 8 drivers aside or something. JH are in.
Yeah.
They're an American company as well.
Yeah.
If you were going to get any, I would recommend these.
And that's what I would ask you to send me the link on those. I definitely want to pick up a pair and just check it out.
Yeah,
we don't even have a PA because we don't have a singer. So
of
and
course,
most clubs that we play in, we don't even need front of house. The back line will, a 412 800-watt bass cabinet, 2 Roland JC 120s, and a pounding drummer in a New York City club. You don't need and if we don't have a singer, we don't need a PA, right? Because the back line will take over.
100%.
So
I love it.
It still feels good to get the pants flapping, to feeling that wind.
I hope you've got someone to help you carry that 412 though. That's not a cab you want to carry on your own.
That's not the hard part. In New York City, the hard part is getting within a mile, parking within a mile. It's like in London, parking within a mile of the club and then carrying it 4 or 5 blocks or throwing it on a dolly. But what was amazing is I was at the Mannheim show last year, and the company, what is it, GR? I couldn't believe I could lift up their cabs with a pinky. They really push the new technology. To be a New York City musician, it's difficult because you take the subway. Most New York City people who live in the metro part of New York City don't have a car, so you gotta. What are you gonna take a 612 on a subway? So you got to take that light gear. But a lot of clubs have backlines. But the problem with the backlines is what they say on the website that they have. You're like, oh, great. And then you show up. You say, well, where is it? Oh, that backline's not working right now. We have this little 110 combo.
Yeah. You're sharing the old Roland keyboard amp.
Yeah, right. All right. Have a nice night. Thanks.
I genuinely did a gig in a club in London through a Mark Bass 110. That was their house amp.
Exactly what it was. It was a Mark Bass 110, and when I showed up, I'm like, "Where's the Ampeg fridge?" You would tell me with the Aguilar Tone Hammer 500. No, we have this Mark Bass 110. That's exactly what it was. I just didn't want to say it, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah. It's a cool amp though. Like, shout out to Mark Bass for that. Like, I really like it, but like, I'd like it like sat on my desk, not in a club, trying to play over like 100 noisy people trying to have dinner at the same time. The next thing I wanted to ask you was, you've had a very successful career outside of music. How has that experience in business helped you with growing Bass Upfront? And I think particularly selfishly, almost for me, I am interested to what have you learned in that world you think musicians and bass players like myself could benefit from?
First of all, Fantastic question. It's a great question that more people should ask, because there is a business aspect to it.
Of course.
So I've been in sales since 1989. I would have killed to attend Berkeley, but that wasn't in the cards. So I went right into sales, and I've been in sales since 89 and moving my way up. And I found everyone has a different rule. What is the number one rule in sales? Some people will say, know your product. Some people will say, know your competition. Some people will say, know your territories, where's hot, where's not. In the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, everyone wants to feel important. The sweetest sound is someone saying their name back at them. And I found that when someone on Bass Upfront, when they write, I try to find the time to reply as much as I can, because someone putting a question out there unanswered is going to turn that cat off from asking a question again, maybe. But don't they feel important? Just a random question, and then one of the admins or I will answer and give them my time. They're supporting Bass Upfront, and I want them to tell more friends and invite more friends. Sometimes I'll see, like, I'll open up my mail and it'll tell me that this person just invited like 60 of their friends. So how did Bass Upfront grow so fast, so quickly? People were like, hey, check this out. So I find the more time that I could spend answering people's questions, or because I'm no guru at any one specific thing, I'll turn them on to someone else. Someone will ask me about a certain product. Like this morning, someone put up a post. I'm a newbie and I'm looking for lessons, and I don't know who to go through. So immediately I say, all right, I prattled off top 3. Steve Lawson, who's my teacher, still after 40 years. Oh, cool. Yeah, Steve Lawson. Yeah. Phil Mann, or Stuart Clayton.
He lives about 10 miles from my mum's house.
That guy is so underrated as a player.
Yeah, he's a beast.
And each one of those guys teach differently. Like Steve Lawson, who I highly recommend, it's a one-on-one Zoom call, and it's recorded for an hour. So I'm a slow learner. Once I get it, I get it. But if I'm learning something new, be honest with yourself, right? So I'm a slow learner. So Steve will show me something slowly because it's on video. Then he'll spend the next 10 minutes playing something beautiful. And all that was the lesson, which once you take advantage of those notes. And then he doesn't wait 20 minutes, 30 minutes for me to get it under my fingers. He's like, you have it on video now. Let's move on to the next thing. So sometimes a half hour in, I'll be like, stop. I'm not going to be able to get all this down. But then look at the way Phil teaches. I have all of Phil's books. He teaches through his books. Plus he has online courses as well. And Stuart Clayton has online courses also. I'm also a member of his classes. There's a YouTube video of him doing a solo bass cover of Shape of My Heart by Sting. It's mind-blowing. So getting back to your question, it's make people feel important. When I get a message in the morning on Facebook, it's this person's birthday or that person's birthday, just to get an errant message on behalf of the whole Bass Upfront community. Happy birthday. And someone, you feel important for a little bit. That's what I learned in business is like attracts like. It's building that community. It's traveling. It's going out. The guys at Mannheim at the Guitar Expo were like, you guys came all the way out here from New York. I want people to see us come out and support them. Since starting in sales, I become a director. So now I teach sales. But it's all about make people feel important, make them feel happy.
That's very actionable advice. Everyone talks about relationships and how important relationships are in music and in any walk of life. But those simple ideas of just reply to a message, take the time to get back to somebody, or even better, like you say, go and meet them face to face.
So many pro musicians will tell you, listen to what the guitar player, don't just listen to yourself. Listen to what the guitar player is playing. There's a world there of music that you could, especially if you're in an instrumental band and you're writing songs. If you're only listening to like the root of what the guitar player is playing, then you're missing out on a ton of stuff. If you're only listening to what the, where the snare lands and not the kick and the snare, then you're missing out on some opportunities, right? It's that old joke that we have 2 ears and one mouth to do twice the listening and half the talking, and yeah, listening is so crucial. And if you're in a relationship, listening is how important that is. And I have a very, very supportive fiance, a very, very supportive lady. So she's not a musician, but she's a music lover, and now she hears the bass, So
Brilliant. Okay.
yeah, it is brilliant. Life is good. So the work-life balance is tough. Would I like to quit corporate America and just make music? Well, it's hard to imagine tomorrow morning waking up and being in the music business and building from scratch. I mean, I might have a year or two of savings to try to make it work and put the time in and do this whole Anthony Bourdain type of thing and spread the word around the world. But that's a leap of faith, brother. That's a leap of faith, knowing that there's no paycheck on Friday. And I've been in sales my whole life, so I'm commissioned, so I'm driven. I'm working hard, knowing that there's no money coming in. But I've done the math, Dan, and if I sell 2 basses a month, if I sell 2 Padulas a month, I'll be able to pay the bills. So
if you sell 2 Padulas a month, you're making more than most bass players do anyway, mate. So you're fine.
Yeah, maybe one. I don't know if you could see how much room I have, but I mean, those are all Ricks against the wall, and there's quite a bit of some pre-CBS Fenders, but there's a 60 P bass back there, a 64 Jazz, a 68 Jazz. So there's basses to fall back on. There's, I could support myself, but it's the leap of faith, especially when I meet so many bass players and musicians who are just phenomenal players. I'm talking world-class players, and they're worrying about how to eat. They're worried about it. So
yeah, man.
The Bourdain thing is sales, isn't it? Right? I'd be selling. You sell yourself. That's the 1st thing you sell. Why would someone want to tune in? And so it's also having a good personality, being able to speak to a club owner respectfully and not thinking that you're the shit. Being humble, staying humble. Corporate America has taught me that. Right? We always serve somebody. Everybody's got to serve somebody. So keeping it humble, keeping it real, keeping it sincere, making people feel important. I think that's the rule to be successful in business and in music. Would I give it all up to tour the world, to do gigs like you do, like Phil Mann does, right? When I see these massive arenas, yeah, I'd go hungry to do that, though. Isn't that fun? The grass is greener. Like people write on Bass Upfront, what do you do for a living? Like to have all that gear, what do you do for a living? I want to do what you do. It's like, be careful what you ask for, man. I'm on call 7 a.m. till midnight. I'm not necessarily working, but I'm on call 7 days a week. So would I love to gig that? Would I love my 9 to 5 to be 9 p.m. to 5 a.m.? to be up on stages like you're on. So I'm jealous of you and cats who are playing these massive, walking into these massive theaters or playing festivals, even at 56 years old. I mean, look at Beato. How old is Beato? I mean, he's incredibly talented. But still, he made it on YouTube. How old was Bourdain when he wrote Kitchen Confidential? After that book blew up, he was on everybody's name. Everyone watched No Reservations or The Layover or A Cook Store. And so it's all about the one call I have with the chief operating officer, the chief marketing officer that says, you know what? Excuse me, fuck it. I'm done. I'm going to wake up at 10 a.m., not 6 a.m. And I'm going to work till 10 o'clock at night, building and making contacts and relationships. I think that's a huge part. So in my corporate gig, I want to know everyone in my industry. I want to know all the shot callers. And just like in music, I want to know all the luthiers that are worthy of knowing. I want to know like becoming friendly with Sheldon Dingwall, becoming friendly with the guys at Alpha, becoming friendly with Jens Ritter, becoming friendly with, I could keep rattling off names, but, Gerald Marlowe, to be able to get a text in the morning from Gerald Marlowe talking about building a Spock base, right? Yeah. To have Martin or Chris available to, hey, I'm thinking about coming out to the UK. Let's get together. And they're like, come out. I was just out in Denmark hanging with Ida Nielsen and Steen, the guy who builds the caveman gear.
Okay.
I'm sitting here having a conversation with Ida Nielsen about how she went from some small town Denmark country clubs to showing up at, Paisley Mansion and meeting Prince. And that's what I want to do, man. I think there's a show there. I think there's a business there, man.
You have a fairly unique perspective. I think Bourdain realized that purely being a chef wasn't necessarily what he was going to be truly great at. It was putting that message across after he wrote Kitchen Confidential and kind of lifted the lid on the whole New York restaurant scene. He realized that actually that was his thing, talking, real talk with people, explaining things brilliantly and passionately. And yeah, it sounds like a really exciting idea, man. I wish you a lot of luck with it. It's cool.
Thank you. That's what, it's exactly what you said. It's sitting down with people and having real talk about not just going to a guitar store in Manila. It's meeting the musicians and talking with the musicians and seeing what's it like compared to going out to Venice and meeting, or going down the Congo, or going to Johannesburg and sitting in with some musicians and be self-deprecating because I can't find the one, because there is no one. Where's the fucking one? Right? I just jump in.
Yeah, man.
Right? And I want to sit in with these guys and I want to be self-deprecating. I want to lose myself because I don't know these Johannesburg bass licks. And I think there's a market for it, man. So stay tuned.
We may have touched on this a little bit, but I've always finished these things with what advice you would give to your younger self. What would you say to the younger David? Would you have gone down a bass playing route instead of corporate America?
Yes. I even tell, if I'm in a business meeting and, they see this, it's kind of hard to miss. Yeah. They'll always ask, or even if I have a dress shirt on, but the cuff, but rolled up with the sleeve, or they see this, right? Last night, and I'm going to answer your question. Last night, I'm sitting outside with the dogs and my girl, and we're listening to the video that Charles Berthoud just put out of him doing Smooth Criminal. Yep. Have you seen that Smooth Criminal video, that solo video?
Yeah, I have seen. Yeah, Charles is amazing.
Charles is another world. And I said to my girl, I said, you know what the difference between, I said, the difference between me and him? And I said, one word separates me and him. It's practice. So that's it. I could play what he's playing right now. I could play anything he plays with the time in. So what would I give my older self? Learn theory. Learn everything there is to know. They said, how could you be a musician if you can't read music? That was a topic on Bass Upfront that I struggled with. It was a great question. How can you call yourself a musician if you can't? And there is no right or wrong answer. You could argue both sides of the coin, but I wish I studied and I crammed as much theory as I can. And I got into this. My father was a jazz musician. He could read like a motherfucker, right? And I wish I had gone to school for music, and I wish there was no plan B. I wish there was no corporate gig available. You know, I got the gift of gab. I can talk to somebody and make them feel important and sell myself. And I'm in the auto industry, right? So it's got a bad rap already. Car salesman guy, but more of a corporate. But what I would have done is I would have dove into the deep end of the pool of music theory and studying and learning and being able to sit down with charts and be able to play them just like that, to be able to sit in with anyone instead of driving, you know, the analogy of driving 1,000 miles to find that lick, knowing that lick is right there because this is what the chord the guitar player is playing. So this is everything that I have available to me. That's why I still study to this day. Every time I get off a lesson with Steve, I'm 10 feet off the ground. Steve's got a great line where he says, there's still a ton of beautiful music that could be written in the key of C. You know, there's so much to learn. And I say to myself, I've been playing 40 years. I've gigged, I've recorded, I've done some major shows. I've got intermediate. I'm keeping it humble. I'm an intermediate bass player. I got decent chops. With the time in, there's most shit I could figure out and play. I'm the lead bass player in my trio. Like the best compliment I ever got was some cats came in to catch one of our show and they wanted to meet the band afterwards. And they said, have you guys ever thought about getting a singer? And his buddy said to him, oh, the bass player is the singer. Could you tell? I'll never forget that. And be able I would study more to answer your question. I would have had no plan B. It would have been starve or learn, right? We win or we learn. Not we win or we lose. We win or we learn. So the younger David Sutkin would have been putting in 10 hours a day. Look at the Beatles. Look at the time they spent in Germany, honing their craft, playing 7 days a week, 5, 6, 7 hour sets. I mean, come on. It didn't just happen. It just doesn't happen overnight. You got to put the time in. And that's what I would give for up and coming players. Put the time in. It's worth it. It's a lot harder when you get older. When you're younger, your mind is a sponge. It's so much easier to learn. I see these young bass players on Instagram who are tearing it up. This Ellen Averdeen, I think her last name is. She's the young lady whose father is a producer. She's tearing it up. There's all these great musicians, and that's not coming by chance. They're studying. They're putting the time in.
Yeah.
That's where I think the magic is, putting the time in.
To bring it around to my own experience, like I have 2 kids now, so I'm very limited in the amount of time I get to practice and prep. But we just did a gig we flew out to Tuscany last weekend and I think we played 70, 80 tunes. We were on stage for 4 hours easily and like a 2-hour sound check before that. and it's all charted, so it's all just on our iPads. So we're able to play that much material and do it to a really high level because everyone involved had a formal education in music. It is incredibly useful and incredibly important, as is learning by ear. Some of my best friends and the most ridiculous musicians I know are kind of church guys here in the UK who don't read any kind of music to any particular standard, but they would play me under the table every day.
But how much better would they be, right? If you had that knowledge that you could have played, you played that 4-hour gig, you could have played another 4 hours, couldn't you? If the iPad, if the song came up on the iPad, because
they'd have had to bring me a strong drink, but yeah, I could have done.
And it's almost 5 o'clock here in the States. It's 4:59, so I'm waiting. I'm close to that
right.
time.
Okay.
But yeah, I think knowledge is power. Knowing the theory. If you're going to be a musician, I think it speeds the guys that could play you under the table by ear. I play everything by ear, and I could write. The thing I love the most is we write very eclectic music, and our songs are only maybe 2.5 minutes. It's very alt. Prog rocky. When my drummer and my guitar player, when we get something, I have them record it without bass. Then I bring it home and I drag that MP3 into Logic, and I could sit here for hours coming up with all kinds of weird lines and phrasings, and I love that. But I think to myself, if I knew what chord it is that my guitar player is playing, even though because he's in alt tuning. I mean, I know guitar shapes, but he's in alt tuning. So if I knew it by ear, I would know what's available to me because I have that education. So I don't think there's multiple ways to learn, but education is never a bad thing. It could only help you. You
have a really unique insight into bass and business. So I think this is going to be a really interesting episode for people. We're looking forward to seeing Bass Upfront continue to grow, and actually give us a shout out your band Apollo's Ghost, right?
Yeah, Apollo's Ghost.
Where can people find you guys?
On any streaming service, or you could find just type in Apollo's Ghost into YouTube, and you can listen to it all free, or you can listen to it on Spotify. It's Apollo's. There happens to be an Apollo Ghost. Okay. Where Apollo's. One day I'll buy a drink when I come out and explain why. Apollo's Ghost. And you can hear some Squire and some Entwistle and some Getty and that bass up front in the lines. Or if you type in Apollo's Ghost, Magic Numbers, that's the name of the album we just released, it'll spin from all 4 of our albums. And so give it a listen. Each song's only 2.5 minutes. And if you don't like what you hear, wait 10 seconds because the song's about to take a wicked turn. It's got a lot of cool shit. Thank you for bringing that up.
I love it. I can see why you're in sales, man. That was good. That was impressive. All right, man. Well, look, I really hope we can catch up when you're over in the UK. And good luck. Go get yourself a drink. Have a lovely evening. Lovely to talk to you.